Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today we're going to make a bamboo cutting board with inlay. Stick around to see how it's done. Today's video is sponsored by
Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
Alright, to get started, I have this 12-inch wide piece of bamboo. We're going to go cut it to length over on the miter saw. Bamboo is one of my favorite woods to work with. It is just absolutely beautiful and a dream to cut. So let's go get started. So over here in the table saw, I'm going to cut my thin veneers that we're going to use for inlay. I have this dark piece of what I think is Mexican ebony and some mahogany. So what I'm going to do is have a thicker piece of mahogany sandwiched between two thin pieces of the Mexican ebony. And the trick is to have all three pieces to be the same thickness as this router bit. Because my keeper piece is going to be so thin, I don't want that trapped between the blade and the fence. I want that on the other side of the blade. So I have a magnetic stop here so I can make repeatable cuts. Now that we have all the dark wood pieces cut, we're going to cut the mahogany, which needs to be a little bit thicker. We'll give that a try. Again, we want all three pieces to equal the thickness of our router bit. Okay, so now I'll grab two of these, one strip here, and see, and that is the perfect thickness. I don't know if we can get that on camera, and that's exactly what we want, and still flexible enough. So we need to make a template for our router to make the inlay curves here. So I got a piece of MDF, and to draw our curves, I'm going to use one of these thin pieces of wood that we cut and some screws here. Kind of wedge it in there. And then one over here. Then I'll just take my pencil here. Let's remove our strip here and our screws. All right, so that's a nice pleasing line. So we're going to take this over to the bandsaw and cut it out. So now I'm going to clean up this line by sanding it. We want this as smooth as we can possibly get it. All right, so I'm just going to sketch out my lines here on the board before we do any routing or cutting to make sure that I am happy with everything. So I'm just going to set my template on here, draw a line. I think that looks good. And then I'm going to do two going this way. Maybe there. I'm going to come out this way a little bit. And one. And then maybe another one going like this. And so that will be our pattern with the inlay. I think that looks good. What we're going to do is I'm going to clamp this down, and then we're going to take a router bit and run it about halfway through and cut it out in the bandsaw, and then come back with a flush trim bit and clean it up. And some of you might ask, why won't you just take the router bit and go all the way through the board? And that is because we're separating this into two pieces, and it's just easier. It doesn't take that much more time to run it over the bandsaw and then clean it up with a flush trim bit. So that'll make more sense here in a second as you see what I'm doing. All right, so I have my cutting board clamped down to the bench here, and then I also have my template clamped down to the bench. And I have my bits in the router that I'm just going to run along the template here. So here we go. So now that we have that groove cut, we're going to cut this out on the bandsaw. You want to make sure the blade stays right in the middle of that line to not ruin the edge that we created. So I got a flush trim bit here in my router table, and the bearing on the top here will ride along the router groove that we cut earlier, cleaning up this edge. And we'll do this with both pieces. So here we go. So here are our two pieces here, and if I just butt them up together, you'll notice that it doesn't fit perfect. Like, it touches in some places and there's gaps in others. And that is just the way the curves work. And that's the reason that we have to remove as much material as we're going to put in. So we're putting in a 1/4 inch of material, so we had to remove that to make sure everything comes together correct. I'm ready to clamp this up. I have my 3 strips. I got the dark wood, the light wood, and then the dark wood. And I'm just going to apply glue on them and then clamp this tight. I do want them to stick up and below the surface just a little bit so we can sand or plane them down when it's dry. So let's get this glued up and clamped. All right, and this is the hard part where it just wants to slip all over the place. All right, so now that that glue has had time to dry, we need to level this off. And there's a couple ways you could do it. You could use a card scraper, you could use a plane, you could use a hand scraper, or you could sand it down. And I'm just gonna take my hand plane here and level it off. I'd like to thank my super supporters over on Patreon. Patreon members get the extended vlogs every week, plus they are eligible for the weekly giveaways. Another way you can help out the show is share this video on Facebook and Twitter. You can even embed it into your blog or rip it off YouTube, throw it on VHS and send it to your folks. Share this video if you think I've earned it. You want to subscribe to my channel if you don't already, because every Thursday we put out project videos such as this, and every Tuesday we do tip videos, experimental videos, and shop upgrades. This particular cutting board will be in my upcoming book coming out later this year. It is all cutting boards and all different kinds of cutting boards. There's end grain cutting boards, there's bread boards and cutting boards, there's cheese boards, there's cutting boards with knife storage built into them, plus a lot more. There will be a user submitted gallery in the back of the book. So if you make cutting boards, go to makesomething.tv/cutting boards to enter your original design cutting board. The publisher will pick their favorites and put them in a gallery at the back of the book, and if you get picked, you will get a free copy of my upcoming cutting board book coming out later this year. Have I mentioned it's coming out later this year and it's nothing but cutting boards? All right, so there's the first inlay. That one's all done. We're just gonna repeat the process 2 more times going this way for a nice little fun design. So I'm just gonna clamp my template back on and do it all over again. So I want the top and bottom to have a slight curve to it. So I'm using one of the extra strips to bend it and draw a line. Then we're gonna go cut it out over on the bandsaw. All right, so I put a nice little chamfer around the edges here. All that's left is a little bit of food grade mineral oil and some feet. Man, I love working with bamboo. It's so beautiful, easy to work with, easy to sand. Make sure you always use stainless screws on cutting boards. That's it. Well, that was a fun project. Thank you for watching. Look for my cutting board book coming out later this year. And as always, be safe, be passionate, and make something. Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today I'm going to show you how to make this kick-ass pizza peel. Stick around to see how it's done. We are here at Ken Craft Hardwoods, and I am looking through some 1/2-inch boards to make a pizza peel. And what I think I found is I'm going to do a centerpiece of mahogany and then have hickory on both sides. So let's head back to the shop and make this pizza peel. I'm going to cut two 16-inch pieces off of that and then glue